There you have it. Welcome everyone to our next Assabet Co-op Market Q&A with our General Manager Sam McCormick. My name is Lauren Bell. I'm Director of Outreach and Communications for the Assabet Co-op Market. We have well over a dozen co-op owners here tonight on Thursday night. So thank you so much for being part of this Q&A session. For those of you who are here who might not be owners, and that's I think we might have one or two. Just so you know what we're about, of course, we are we're an initiative to open a full service grocery store, a cooperative grocery store that in many ways is like any other grocery store, full service, every department you would expect. The big differences, of course, are that we prioritize local farmers and food producers, bakers and all that kind of stuff, so that profits stay local and help build a thriving local economy and local food system. And the other big difference, of course, is that we are community owned by you guys, now more than 1,660 residents from Maynard, the surrounding communities, and in fact, more than 40 communities across Massachusetts. So it gives us democratic control over our food system and a lot of input and a lot of fun, and of course, owner benefits. And if you have any questions that aren't answered tonight, you can go to assabetmarket.coop, that's .coop. And you can always email me, Lorne, L-O-R-N-E, at assabetmarket.coop with any questions as well. I love talking co-op. So that's the welcome bit of this. I did just want to briefly mention before I turn it over to Sam, many of you have probably already seen this. We have packed the summer, feeling so good getting back out there and connected with people and back at the farmers markets and everything. We have packed the summer with farmers markets and events. And so I hope that you'll come out to see us at those events, even if you are already an owner. And if you're not an owner, you can certainly stop by. You can become an owner on the spot, ask us any questions, and of course, pick up great local produce and meat and cheese and honey and all the rest from great local farms and food producers. Our next one is coming up next Tuesday from 3:30 to 6:30 p.m., the Hudson Farmers Market right in front of Hudson Town Hall. And that's a great farmers market to visit, even if you're not stopping by the co-op table. But we will be there. If you're an owner, please bring a friend and introduce them.
Do you want to listen to the co-op, the Assabet co-op?
And we will.
Do you want to take care of that one?
Yep. Let me just a quick reminder before I turn it over to Sam here. If you're not already muted, just make sure that you mute yourself. In the bottom left-hand corner, you can click mute, and that'll take care of all the background noise. All right. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to General Manager Sam McCormick.
Well, hello, everyone. It's great to see you this evening. We were doing a bit of an experiment to see how a weekday evening would work. We've done a number of these Q&As on Sunday morning, Saturday morning. So we wanted to try to be accessible to some folks where a weekday evening might be better. So I've been looking forward to this. And just as a side note to the tabling at Hudson, sneak preview, we may have some cool new t-shirts that we'll be modeling. So if you happen to show up at the Hudson Farmers Market, you may see some cool Assabet Co-op Market t-shirts on Lauren and myself. And we'll look into the future of maybe making those available for sale for folks if they'd like to have those as well. Well, I appreciate everyone being here this evening. And the first thing to really kick it off, I want to think about this topic of kind of cooperatives in a larger sense. And what comes to mind for me is a few of the things that we've posted on our Facebook page or reposted of other co-ops that are having success moments right now. So the Dorchester Food Co-op in Boston, in downtown Boston, they've secured a location. And I know that I think everyone who's an owner here has had this experience of the anticipation and the anxiety of having a location, right? That's what we're working on. So I really want to celebrate Dorchester's securing a site and looking forward to their opening in the hopeful near future. And then also lifting up the River Valley Co-op, who just opened their second location. And it is apparently, according to inside sources, one of the most successful opening days on record for a co-op, which is pretty amazing. So I really want to lift up Rochelle, the whole team over there. They put a lot of hard work in. There's a lot of support from the NFCA folks, the regional co-op, as well as the National Co-op Grocers Association that was also supporting their opening. So just want to lift that up, celebrate them. If you haven't seen the post on our Facebook page, click through. They've got some cool videos, and you can kind of watch that whole live stream of their opening event, which is really neat. So next, just want to touch on that board update that went out to folks. If people saw the email, saw the post, the board is keeping up with their communication in tandem with our Q&As. The latest news in the conversation we've been having is that we're talking about an adjustment to our fiscal year end. And as a part of that, we are needing a member meeting in September. And at that meeting, we want to bring up the topic of changing the end of our fiscal year, which currently ends in June. So we've ended this past fiscal year. But with future store operations, we look at the year end. You have about 3 months to really close out the books. And for a year end in June, we'd be closing out the books and needing to put our final financials together right around when schools go back in session. We're having our busy season in the fall. So for those reasons, among others, I'm recommending to the board and to the ownership that we adjust that to be the calendar year end, so that we are doing more of that work during our slow season in the winter when we're doing other planning work as well. So that is exciting that the board is in agreement that we're bringing that to the membership. So that technically involves bylaw adjustment to do that, and that's why we need to call a member meeting. Why wouldn't we want to do that? Exactly. I feel like this is a highly functional thing I'm suggesting. So I'm looking forward to just a great moment of consensus. And more than anything, I'm really looking forward to having a membership meeting in September, because I'd love to meet so many more people. And with COVID, it's slowly I'm starting to do that. Some of these tablings and farms and events. So I'm really looking forward to us having a moment in September with hopefully good weather, where we can have a larger amount of people present. So look out for a date for that. We have to confirm a location and a date for the location. And you could look out for future messaging on that via email and Facebook. The other item that was noted in the board's update was just there are positive negotiations. And I know folks are getting tired perhaps of hearing that phrase, but it is really within the co-op's best interest for us to maintain that stance until we have signed something, really, because we want to do this in the best way possible. We want to secure a site. We want to have it established and shared at a point where we have signed and we know that it's been secured. So I really appreciate folks' patience as we're in this, what may feel like a holding pattern. But what I'm able to share are things like, I've talked about infrastructure things in the past, but there are other things that go into during a period of negotiations, future looking work. I mean, the fun stuff is, I have some block diagrams, some theoretical design for a store that we're starting to think about. And, how many linear feet of bulk should we have? And what kind of food should we think about cooking in our kitchen? So we are thinking about these things. And I know, again, the frustration that's all, it seems to be happening behind closed doors, but there are folks involved in our ownership who were on a committee called the store design or the site development committee. And that's been adjusted to an advisory panel. So there are folks that I do call on for support throughout this process. So knowing that there are folks within the ownership who are privy to some of the details and information, as we start to have these conversations about layout and, is this parking going to work? And, so as much as possible, trying to involve folks from the ownership. And then what I'm looking forward to more than anything is having a site announcement and then being able to actually have a design charrette and having a moment for community to come in and see what the future space could look like and have perspective and to give feedback. Like, those are the moments I'm really looking forward to. So I'm about as impatient as you all to be able to share more. So that's what I'm looking forward to, very much so, hoping that's in the near future. And and as a point of context, the way we're doing this work, we are heavily relying on folks within the co-op community. So we're also not, this isn't the board and myself and Lauren, just like with our attorney in a bubble. We're really working hard with the staff, with the NFCA, the New England Food Co-op Association. We're working closely with them. We work closely with the staff of the Food Co-op Initiative, and with general managers of other regional co-ops. So I have the benefit, as we think about, how many linear feet of bulk. It's a great example because there are so many people that have many perspectives on this. But one of the things that I really value is that I do have general managers like Glenn from Middlebury Co-op, Ed King from Littleton Co-op, and other folks that I can have phone calls and I can have Zoom calls, and we can look at things together. I can get their perspective, both as a regional co-op and somebody who's been working in a store of a similar size to what we're thinking about. So that is the, substantive perspective. We're really doing our best to gain multiple perspectives and make sure that up until the point that we can share it with the whole ownership, we're trying to gain as much perspective as we can in the closed door session version of how things are right now. So with that, that is like my most substantial update, and I really would love to just open the floor up to conversation and questions and not me talking as much. So I'd love to hear from you all if there are questions and thoughts, and I haven't been keeping track of the chat. So Lauren, I don't know if there's anything.
Yeah,
that you want to...
there's one recent question that hasn't been addressed from Sarah. Do you have an estimate of how long or how much longer it might be when you could make a site announcement?
I wish I could give a date, but I think the thing that we've been consistently saying, I would be hopeful. It would be very lovely to have a site announcement before the owners meeting. And I like to have ambitious goals. So I want to remain hopeful that we could have a site announcement this summer, but knowing that we have a number of things that are not in our control, as far as how a negotiation process can go. And my and the board's goal is to communicate that as soon as possible. So I really would hope, I am hopeful that announcement can come soon.
And Sam, there was a question or a statement / question. The projected desired square footage was reduced with the previous site. Our original was 7,500 to 10,000 square feet. So it was actually in that range with the previous site. But is that still the plan, or have we gone back to a larger site goal? I don't know if that is, I don't know where we stand on information about the square footage of the potential site we're working on. I
can't share the specific square footage of the site, but I can say that we're within the normal range. We're back within the normal range of what we were looking for overall square footage and for retail square footage. We're not reducing it at the moment. We're looking at trying to maintain it solidly where the projections wanted us to be. Another vague answer, I know, but we're within the normal range again. So we are looking at increasing the size of it from the last site option. Yeah.
And Dan asked, would it be possible to prepare a mini status report listing the status of the major steps of identifying, negotiating, due diligence, inspections, and finalizing the acquisition of a site? Nothing that would identify that actual site. That
is a great question for the board. So I could safely say I don't have complete control in sharing that information. I do work with the board to have consensus on what is shared publicly, and I would need to work with the board to have agreement on what portions of what you've listed the board would be willing to share. And again, out of the perspective of not wanting to overpromise and underdeliver, which I think if we start putting things into a timeline at this point without an actual site announcement, that's part of what the concern would be. But it's certainly something that we can bring up to the board. Yeah.
And I'm just going to type into the chat field there. Any questions to the board, feel free to email board@assabit. Spell it right, Lauren. assabitmarket.co.uk. And any of their updates that come to you, those are coming from them. So you can feel free to email them back.
So let's see, what do we have another?
Jeanette?
I just saw that. Okay, so another question we have is any knowledge of the overall amount of bulk versus packaged goods? So that, interestingly enough, I was just on a call today with regional co-ops, a conversation specifically about bulk departments. And it was kind of a status check-in with folks in the area to see how departments were doing with the reopening of a lot of departments with lifting a lot of the safety measures around COVID. So a number of folks are at the point where they have completely put their bulk sections back to how they were prior to COVID, with the exception of a few folks reduced the amount of like the scoop bins that they use, because they found that for those types of materials, the scoop bins, they started pre-packing them for people, and then people preferred the pre-pack because it was less messy and, sifting flour and things like that. So it seems like a lot of things have gone back to normal. And so what I've been having conversations with folks, because I think bulk is a great, it's a great example piece to talk about, because it's a department that can be expanded. It's much easier to expand a bulk department than it is to reduce it, because the cost to build a bulk department, and Ellen Anthony is on the call here with us and can speak to this more, is a bulk buyer for many years. The equipment itself is very expensive. So those gravity bins and everything like that, that's very expensive equipment. And so the perspective is, so what is the sweet spot for us to have enough bulk to open so that we can meet that need, and not to have too much, because again, easier to expand than to reduce. So we're trying to keep that perspective in mind. And the percentage of bulk to the overall store can vary drastically for different spaces. Some folks, it's 8% of their total sales. Some folks, it's 10%. It can really vary. And a few folks have seen their bulk department sales bounce back completely, and a few are finding it neutral. And some found it a bit downgraded because, again, they were finding the pre-pack was preferred. So as they start to bring that back, their numbers are going up again. So we're gonna try to be wise about our offering and how we manage that. And yes, I would love to avoid packaging as well. And I just, we're gonna have to get creative. If we want to avoid packaging, we're gonna have to figure out some options, and we may have to split the difference, and we'll absolutely do our best to be creative about that and to find the least wasteful and the most economic way that we can do that.
So Sam, can I ask a follow-up question to that as an owner, not me?
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
So one of the things a lot of owners have expressed interest in are bulk items that aren't the traditional bulk items, or at least not in most people's minds. So yes, the bulk foods, but a lot of the bulk liquids, the bulk liquid soaps, liquid, honey, olive oil, that kind of thing, where we can avoid all those big plastic bottles and stuff and bring our own, or use whether we have a deposit system or whatever. You've opened a store before, even though it had already been open as kind of a private members club. It brought new priorities when you opened it to the public down at Mariposa. How much of this can we determine ahead of time, especially given, we've had some owner surveys, so we have some insights to what our owners really want, and just also just over the years gathering that data informally. But how much of this are we going to know ahead of time? Like, will we have a bulk dishwashing liquid thing, or a bulk maple syrup, or bulk honey, or whatever, versus we start off with what we know are the things that almost everyone who comes to a co-op wants in the bulk section. And then we kind of gauge interest by people coming to us and as owners and saying, I was really looking forward to you guys having a bulk soap section. Is there any chance you can add that? How do you kind of do that as a manager? Yeah.
So one of the things that I don't know if folks have heard this before, but it's often said when you open a store, you have a plan, right? And often your plan, you try to hit that middle ground. So exactly what you're saying. You want to have the core offerings. We've had multiple studies done, and we've had surveys that have gone to the ownership. Well, we may do another one, right? But to get this, not just a sense, but to actually be able to put some numbers behind what are folks looking for in this co-op, in the co-op that you own. So we're going to try to meet those core needs. Then it's very true that within 6 months of opening, that changes. And then within another 6 months, that changes again. And within the next 2 years, it changes again. And within the next 5 years, it changes again. So what we really have to be looking for, and again, why thinking about too little bulk to start versus too much, is what can we look at expanding in our offerings versus reducing? I don't like to waste things, and reducing often equals waste. And so really thinking about core offerings of things people have been very clear about. And I think bulk has a great and wonderful and terrible reputation. It's something we all want, right? We want to reduce waste, we want to do all that. It requires extensive labor and cleaning, so we have to have really good programming in place and how we manage it. And so when we talk about things like oil, honey, soap, I don't know if anyone here has ever done this. I have done this. You thought you screwed the lid onto your laundry detergent. You did not, in fact, screw it on all the way, and it got knocked over. And the next time you go in the laundry room, there is soap all over the floor. So I've dealt with that experience at a co-op where you're just like, oh no, our bin is leaking. And then you have to deal with the consequence, right? So I would equate it to how we kind of open the store and the front end, right? So there is a strong perspective to have a click and collect option, right? To have the ability for folks to be able to purchase groceries, to have it prepared as an order, and you could pick it up at the store. I would like to do that, and I'd like to have us prepared to do that. There's no world in which you normally offer that on day one, because on day one, we want to make sure the registers are running. We want to make sure the grill is working. We want to make sure the refrigerators aren't breaking down, right? So we want to do that offering, and it's a matter of timing. When do we plan to do it? And what's a sensible time frame in which we can accomplish it well? So in the way that we would do that, we'd say our aim would be to have click and collect within 3 months or within 6 months of opening. In the same way, if we were going to look at expanding departments with bulk offerings, what's a reasonable time frame to look at doing that? So I appreciate everyone's kind of thought and care around this, because this is what we're doing, right? We all want to have the things we need in the co-op that we own. So, continue to be really thoughtful about all these things. Yeah.
Yeah, and we all have our favorites, right? I'm
Yeah.
I love, cold brew on tap. But there are some people who don't drink coffee. And so we got to think about it as that occupies this much space with a kegerator, basically, and the need to maintain hygiene around the taps and all that kind of stuff, and clean them every day. And so I'd love you to have it for me. I just hope that there's 100 other owners who also want that, and we have to
exactly. Like, I think nut butter machines are another good example.
Uh-huh.
It's a great and wonderful idea, right? You get to make your own peanut butter, almond, whatever, cashew. You have to clean those. You have to take care of those. You have to maintain those. And so again, it's thinking about, all right, is that something we want to have in our plan on day one? Or do we want to have nut butter machines in 6 months? And I can see Ellen right now going, no, on day one. So those are the things we have to think about. And again, I'm not going to make all of these decisions. I like to have the thought that I have perspective on a number of these things. And a lot of the work I'm doing now is to gain and to gather knowledge from as many folks as I can, so that when I hire staff to do this work, I can inform them with the information I've been gathering, and then we can make decisions together, because I am not an expert in all of these areas, and I will never claim to be. So I will be working with staff who have expertise in these different areas, and we'll work all together to try to meet these needs in the best way possible and the most efficient operational way possible, because we do have to think about how we day-to-day staff every operation that we think we can accomplish. So. But Ellen wants nut butter on day one. It's duly noted. And so does Jeanette. All right. Do we have any other thoughts, questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and join in. Drop a question in the chat. I can talk about food offerings all day long. I love it.
Jim has volunteered this service before, and so I just, for folks who are I think everybody can read. No, there's a direct message to me. So for the farmers markets and other events aimed at getting the word out, I hope you're okay with me sharing this, Jim. Okay. I can help with some basic translations of Spanish and now Portuguese, which I learned in the last year. Hudson, Marlborough, and Framingham have the larger populations of native Portuguese speakers. And this is awesome. And the only one of those communities where we are directly tabling is Hudson. And we have 3 markets there. So, and I'm not, we can talk about this, Jim. I know we're trying to set up a time to chat, but it's a huge resource to have that kind of service available to us from an owner, from anyone. And of course, is directly aligned with our mission of increasing access to healthy food at the co-op, increasing understanding of what a co-op is, and just bringing more people in of all walks. At some point, I think that's going to be really useful. At this point, I think it would probably be more informal. I could send some documents to you around tabling, or if you'd like, you can certainly get in touch with me and we'll chat at some point. But about translating posts or emails that I send out. In terms of the actual tablings themselves, beyond like I have, like a little sign that says Ask the Co-op Market. We have the brochure, but that's pretty tricky to translate that whole thing. Maybe we can make a brief, but if you want to be part of the tabling, and this is a good segue for me toward the end of this, because I did not mention it, with 17 tablings, although I've just put a few down, but I've finished a few, but 17 tablings scheduled for the whole summer and going into September. It would be awesome to have volunteers with me at the tablings, and we do have a few volunteers who have stepped up, but they're a really fun way to interact with the community, which of course is what being a cooperative is all about. And so if you wanted to pop in, or anyone, but wanted to join me for one of those tablings, and certainly, if you want to come to one of the 3 Hudson Market tablings, Jim, that would be awesome. We may get some folks who approach the table who are bilingual and would appreciate having someone who speaks Spanish or Portuguese at the table. That would be great. But just generally to everyone, please email me if you're interested in tabling. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great way. It really is. And you bring your bag, right? Your reusable bag, and you go around and you get the freshest locally sourced food around, and all these unique foods too. And so if you're interested in tabling, you can email me at Lorne, Lorne, @assabetmarket.coop, and we can chat about it. I give you a full rundown, and you have a script and FAQs, and it's pretty straightforward. It's really just chatting with people about what we already love, and then asking them if they're interested in joining the co-op. So, but Jim, we will reconnect, and I apologize for the delay. It's hectic back here, but we'll reconnect and we'll get something down.
And just to emphasize, the tabling, Lauren does an awesome job. I think a lot of folks have met Lauren through the tabling at different farmers markets and things like that. But it's really fun to have another person there. And I was at one with Lauren, and we got to kind of, everybody brings something different, right? So I encourage owners to join in with that, because you never know what quality you can bring that the other person may not have, and how you can complement each other and find folks to chat with who may not otherwise have interacted. So really encourage, Lauren is totally capable. He can do all the tablings, but it's really great when we get more support and folks who are really invested in this to be there. So I appreciate it.
I have one approach, and I always find when someone tables with me, I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have put it that way. But now this volunteer owner is connecting with this potential owner in a way that I wouldn't have, and it's just that is what this is about. So I love having people tabling with me, or just setting folks up to table on their own, and we have a lot of folks doing that now. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah. Do we have any other thoughts, any comments, any cool ideas for the co-op? Looks like we're starting to see a few folks leave. It's getting a bit later.
Can I ask another question?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, I get tired of typing. I'll just spit it out. So the border where we're targeting, is, and you probably said this before and I just lost track. So Hudson on that side, what's the diameter, I guess, of our target market?
This is all based on
For
market
owners.
study. Yeah, so based on the ownership that we have, and like Lauren said, we have about 40 different communities represented. But the best way to put it, it's generally like a baseball pitch with Hudson, Maynard, and then the surrounding areas being kind of like a fan above it. Broadly speaking, but there really are, we have ownership that's spread out all around Middlesex County, really across the region, but still with a significant core of owners in Maynard. We have, I believe, over 50% of our ownership in the Maynard area. And so that's why we're still targeting the Maynard area for a location. And it's, highly accessible through all the routes that run through for folks who live nearby. So, yeah.
We have an owner in Seattle too, don't we, or something like that? Like far.
We have a few fairly,
Yeah.
one in California. Yeah, we have a few round and about. Yeah.
Part of the Come to Maynard or Assabet Valley for the weekend promotion tour. Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Some of them are, there's probably a half a dozen from, far off locations, Minnesota, Oregon, Washington, California, Texas, Florida. And my assumption has always, some of them have emailed us and said, I just wanted to join because I really support the cause, which is great. Even, we'd love it for, the real support is the buying power, right? So getting people who can buy on a regular basis and support the co-op that way. But we appreciate any support from owners from wherever. And some of them, I assume, have, children or family in the area, and that, they support the cause, but they also want to, they've been alerted to it by their kids or whatever, and they want to.
Well, I think one of my favorite versions is, I think we have some folks who will be living here and have preemptively become co-op owners in the anticipation of moving to the area, which I really love. It was like, before I do anything else, I have to find a co-op, right? So that I like that one a lot.
Yeah, and we hear that a lot from every summer that we table at the Maynard Farmers Market. There are, in any farmers market, especially Maynard, there are new, families with strollers, coming in from who have just moved here from Arlington, Somerville, Cambridge, Boston, Charlestown, and they say I just had someone a couple of weekends ago who picked up a brochure and said they wanted to join. They have to run it by their partner, but one of the reasons they moved to Maynard was because they had heard that a co-op was coming either to Maynard or to the area. So.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds very catchphrasy, but co-ops bring community together, and that's our hope and our goal, and not just to bring people together, but to find ways that we can support each other and find ways that we can help to develop and lift people up, right? That's part of what we think about. We've had a couple of months of the world thinking about diversity, equity, inclusion work, and I like to say, well, what about the rest of the year, right? So that's really what we're about, is like, how do we not just welcome people, but how do we lift people up, and how do we break down barriers, and how do we provide a space that all are in a position where they can be leaders and voices and have a position of power. So, yeah.
Can I ask another question?
Absolutely.
Thanks, Jeanette. I don't know if, oh yeah, my name's there. So how do you go to a farmer's market and promote, because I had this challenge myself. I go to farmers markets and I buy fresh stuff from people's front yards on tables. Isn't that kind of the opposite of joining a food co-op? I mean, because I go to the food co-op instead of supporting all my local friends with blueberries on their porch. I didn't know if I should do both, and of course I did, but because I am an owner. But how do you see that when you're at a farmer's market?
So I see it, I think it's, and even beyond the farmer's market, farm stand at the farm, right? So like thinking about all these ways that food is produced, moved, sold. So I see it from a couple different perspectives. For us right now as a startup, it's a space for us to share in community, in food community that's there, especially among producers that are smaller producers if they're at a farmer's market. And it's a way for us to connect with those folks, because then as we look at opening the store and we're building a list of folks that we want to talk to about being a producer for our store, it's a way that folks can progress and grow. And I have friends who have tabled at farmers markets for years. The progression for them was often they were selling out of their house, out of their warehouse space, out of wherever. Then they were able to progress and be able to sell at a farmer's market, which means their production line was able to increase. They started to have like a staff person or two, right? And then they may have been able to get into a restaurant or two and produce for a restaurant. So kind of looking at how you can expand and grow. And that piece that Lauren, I think, talks about a decent amount, which is important, which is the growth of the local economy. I think our involvement and continued support of local farmers markets isn't anti our work. It's a part of, and I think it's within the framework of developing and building the local economy. And they're also just a really great space where we get to celebrate food. So I hope farmers markets never go away. We're never competing with them, right? I don't want to try to take the blueberries off of that table. But if that person is able to produce more and wants to have a consistent revenue stream, because that's what cooperative and small, grocers can provide, is a more consistent revenue stream, then that's what we're there for, to help support their growth and development. And then for farm stands as well. I mean, I think they're great, and I would send people to farm stands if we didn't have that item and somebody really wanted that. I will very happily say, there's this really cool farm. If you go down here and turn left there and you go, they have a really cool farm stand. Again, that's not competition to us. It could just be that they're not able to provide a consistent enough crop that they can supply to us, but we still want to promote them, and we still want to provide means and access and lift them up. So I really see this all being in my perspective, in symbiosis, but it is open to interpretation.
Yeah, I agree with everything Sam said around that topic, and as I to kind of dovetail on it, as I look at farmers, and I've been talking to them for years now at all the farmers markets and at their farms where the vast majority let us table there. They don't see us as competition either, because farms generally have, if they're lucky, they have two primary revenue streams, right? It may be three. They have their farm stand, maybe they have a CSA, and they have the farmers markets. The farmers markets happen usually only once a week in whichever town. It costs them money to load up the trucks and pay for that labor and go to and then have staff there selling the food and all that kind of stuff. So what this is for them is an additional revenue stream for them that is also supporting the local economy, but it basically gives them a place, a full service grocery store, which they can't get into otherwise, that will negotiate with them one-on-one, not through some big corporate chain. And it becomes a place where they can put their food on shelves 7 days a week, year round, and broaden the awareness of their brand as a farm or as a food producer. So the farmers markets are really just one of many revenue streams, and most of these farmers welcome it, no matter where it comes from, will welcome being able to put their food in an additional space. And to be able to put it in a food co-op and be kind of synonymous with the community building that food co-ops do is another bonus for the local farmers. So most of them the vast majority of them are psyched that we're coming to the area because it means an additional, as Sam put it, consistent revenue stream for them with less effort. It's one truck to the store without all of the labor costs and packing costs associated with multiple trips to all the different farmers markets.
Yeah.
Then I feel better about it. I feel better.
Okay. Oh, you're muted, Ellen, I think.
Yeah, Ellen, you can unmute yourself. Can you do that? Bottom left.
Did that
There
work?
you go.
That worked.
Yeah.
All right. Different plan every time I open this thing. I worked at a co-op in Connecticut for a long time, and at one annual meeting, is that what it was? Yes, it was. We had the farmers who supplied us, some of them speak about their experience of being suppliers to the co-op. And one family said that since our co-op was buying so much of their milk, that one of their off-farm jobs could be given up. The woman worked as a teacher, and then, you know, they were selling enough milk through the co-op that they could, and, you know, other stores too, but she could, you know, give it up and stay home and take care of things at the farm instead. And there was another farm family who had a similar experience, that they could give up one of their off-farm jobs and just do the thing that they really wanted to do.
Yeah, it's a great story, and we actually hear a lot of that. Rochelle Prunty, there's a video of Rochelle, the manager at River Valley, a few years into being a successful co-op in Northampton, said something very similar, that a few years after opening, one of the local dairy farmers came to Rochelle and told her, you know, thank you so much, you saved our farm. And Rochelle got very teary telling that story, because it's very real. You know, it is incredibly difficult to be a family farm these days, a small family farm, with all the corporate pressures and all the big government subsidies that go to these big industrial farms that artificially reduce the cost of their food so that they can sell it to all of the big box store and chain retailers. And so to be able to have that consistent revenue is literally a livelihood saver for a lot of the local farmers. So it's you know, it's great to have the community feeling that we have, but there are real livelihoods at stake, and you know, we hope to play some role in you know, securing more regular income for local small family farms.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Jeanette. Well, we are nearing 8 o'clock, and I appreciate very much everyone being here this evening with us. Any last thoughts or questions? Anything we can take away to think about, bring back the next session?
Can we do like an owner icebreaker or something? I feel like I see people at the, you know, the live or the owners meeting, and then here on Zoom. But it'd be cool just to have like a get to know each other owner thing outside the scope of, you know, business agenda. I don't know.
I think that's a great idea. It would be great to think and plan around that and see what's possible. See if we can get some sponsors to help support an effort like that.
Of course.
Just have a nice community moment. I think that would be really great. So duly noted, and we'll think about how we can make that happen.
Yeah, and on that note, Jim, and then I know we got to wrap up here, but we've been talking with Fat Moon Farm, the mushroom organic mushroom growing farm, and we are working on a fall class, a 3-part class with them around mushroom growing, where we would all pick up our mushroom growing block at one of the local farms, and then take them home and jump on a Zoom call, learn about mushrooms, learn about mushroom growing, show off how our mushrooms. Sam and I both bought a block from Elizabeth, and I've been eating homegrown organic shiitake mushrooms for a week now, which is awesome. So
there's like 3 pounds of mushrooms that you get off of these things. It's crazy.
We found ways to do, like, we had an awesome omelet tonight with shiitake mushrooms and onions and stuff. So that's that. And Elizabeth from Fat Moon Farm had said it's really a social thing, because it's showing off, and you know, it's like little kids with their. So hopefully we can do something like that organically, no pun intended. But yeah, I think if there's a way that we can either do a thing on its own that is owner social, or just you know, somehow work it into one of these more regular meetings.
And I think Lauren and I are consistently with the board just trying to think of like fun ways that we can all interact. And one of the, so I studied photography once upon a time, and I love to take photos of food, which is very handy with this profession. And my partner and I were cooking up some of the mushrooms that we got from Fat Moon Farm, and we'll probably post something next week, but maybe we'll kick off kind of like a cooking with co-op series, and I'll kick it off. I can put my face on it, but part of it is we love to see your faces and your food, and how that is an expression of you and your life, family and community. So keep an eye out for that, because that's like another way that we can have a way of sharing a bit of ourselves with the community. And we'd love to have that interactive so that other folks could participate in their cooking adventures. So, yeah.
There is a brewery in Hudson. I know you've met at a brewery in Maynard, Lauren, but they only have gluten-free, gluten-reduced beer in the Hudson Brewery. So there is a back room at the Ground Effect, which is, I think it's called Ground Effect, in Hudson. There's a room that we could get for nothing. I think for nothing, if we drink beer.
You drink enough beer.
Yeah. So, you know, that's an option now that we can actually meet in person to do something like that.
It's a great idea. We have done, I think, 3 now meetups at Medusa Brewing on Main Street in Hudson.
Yep.
And they give us the room for free. And, you know, I do my due diligence and drink their delicious beer. And so do the owners who come and hang out. So yeah, I cannot wait to get back to that. And that's a great suggestion. We haven't done one at Ground Effect, but I'll reach out to them.
They have beer I can drink, which is the reason I will come.
And, you know, that's the reason a lot of people want to join the co-op, is because they know that we'll have a lot of gluten-free options, and we'll listen to our owners around that. And so I think it could be a very cool kind of promo, you know, draw for people who need that gluten-free option on the brew front. So
Yeah. And I have celiacs. Yeah, I have celiacs. So you bet when you walk into the store, things will really be gluten-free.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that. I'm not happy for you that you have celiac, but I'm happy to hear it for me.
Absolutely. Well, I've loved the conversation with everyone this evening. I want to keep everyone's time in mind, though, and I think we should wrap up. And I love this idea of community space, planning a meetup. Also looking forward to having an owner meeting in September. All of these opportunities for us to connect and just create space where we can have community. So I'm really looking forward to all of this. So thank you all for being here this evening, and I look forward to the next time we get to check in.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Yep.
Bye.